You're listening to Journaling with PT. I am your host, artist, PT Russell. Welcome back. If you've been listening, then you would have been a part of the journey so far. And so far, I've been sharing journal entries that were pre-recorded. But today marks the first time that I actually have a guest that I'm interviewing. A guest by the name of EVAN FALK, who happens to be just an extraordinary video creator and artist in his own right. And he is a very successful claymation, stop motion animator from Moose Motion Studios. So I'll have to introduce you to EVAN FALK of Moose Motion Studios, my very first guest. Another thing I wanted to add was that in this whole process for me of journaling and to have a listening audience, whomever you are, know that you're doing a tremendous amount just by lending an ear, being a part of something that I find to be very important to me for my growth as a person, as an artist, as a human being. And to have experiences with documenting my life, however it might have looked in the past, whether that was in the form of writing short stories, writing poetry, just words coming out through the fingers, typed out on a computer or written in a book. And then there's the act of actually painting. All of these thoughts come out, ideas, feelings, through splatters of paint, through the fingertips on a canvas, on a piece of paper, sometimes on a thigh, sometimes on a sidewalk. It doesn't matter. Just feelings, those things that are internalized are expressed. And everyone needs to find expression. So however you find your expression, just go with it. Whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you enjoy, do it. Do it without judgment. Don't allow yourself to be limited by whatever's in your mind or what other people's misconceptions or prejudgments are of you. It's important to do what is best for you as a creative. And we all are creative in our own ways. So I just wanted to share that just a little bit today, a little bit of my process of the journaling, because having my guests included as a part of my journey is a part of my journey. The journaling includes my guests. And my podcast is, in essence, an open book into my life, at least a part of my life that I'm sharing with the general public. And that is the part that processes my experiences somewhat through the art of journaling. It is an art form and one that I'm learning and enjoying along the way. So without further ado, I present to you my first guest. Today is a special day because it's a major achievement this week. There's a major achievement, and that is this makes a whole month since the podcast started. Can you believe that? Unbelievable how fast time flies. And another milestone, major, is this is the day that I have my first guest. My guest happens to be an extraordinarily talented artist and video creator, EVAN FALK of Moose
Motion
Motions Studios. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
That is wonderful. I'm so happy to have you here as well. And Evan, can you tell us a little bit about Moose Motion, what it's all about?
Well, it's gone through a lot of changes throughout the years, I must say. Mainly stop motion, I would say, and claymation modeling. I've been a sculptor for about 25 years plus at this point, and I've been
Wow.
doing stop motion kind of off and on between those time frames. And yeah, about 4 years solid, I've basically been doing stop motion animation cartoons from cars to monsters. There's a little bit of everything for, everyone there, I'd say.
Yes, I think that's how I first came across your video. It had to have been about 2 years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong. On Facebook, I just saw this video with a car and
Yeah.
this little guy kind of waving. I said, "This is so freaking cool." I said, "What is this? What's happening here?" And so I started following you, and then I would comment, and we started a little connection right there. And it's just been great. And so I listened to your video that you sent about the makings of Moose Motion, but I would like for you to share with the listening audience
The
a little
happy
bit about
the
the
happy
background.
accident, as it were.
All right. And can you go into a little more detail about that without recanting everything, all of the
Yeah,
all
without
the
too
graphic?
getting too graphic about it. Yeah, sure. Well, it all kind of like started around, yeah, the time I bought my house. I was literally just last load moving towards, I think it was around 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I got into a car accident that day, and it was
Oh,
with a moose, of course. And I was in a 2004 Cavalier, so
mm,
it's not exactly a very large car. If I were to take a estimate, he was maybe, I was maybe 300 pounds more than the moose, so not a lot of
yes.
weight, distribution between us,
Right, right.
right? So yeah, core unfortunately it was like coming straight up a hill, and all I could see were these big long legs, and then I immediately knew it was a moose, and I'm like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me. Like really of all days it has to be today." Okay. So, unfortunately, I had
Oh,
literally like just seconds to basically react to what was going to happen. It's like, "Hey, either I'm going to hit this moose head on and there's a truck coming in the other oncoming lane, so I can't go that way, or it's hit
right.
the ditch." So I immediately started trying to hit the ditch, which was, smart reaction. It's going to hurt and it's going to suck. It's going to write off my car probably, but it's a lot better than getting your head taken off by a moose. But unfortunately, the moose panicked, and then he decided he was going to go back into the ditch where I was going. So, like a last split-second decision, I basically grabbed the wheel as hard as I could and ripped it back onto the road, ducked beneath like my dashboard, and just hoped for the best. I remember opening my eyes for like just a split second, and all I could see was just metal and glass crashing down. I'm like,
Oh,
nope, closing my eyes
goodness.
again. Yeah, I don't want to see what's happening until it's all over.
Wow.
And yeah, like longest 5 seconds of my life, I would say. I'm getting kind of goosebumps just talking about it a bit. But luckily, for the most part, I was
Mhm.
okay. My dogs were with me too,
Right.
unfortunately, in the car. And of course,
Wow.
my immediate reaction, was, "Oh my God, I hope they're okay." My little pug comes crawling up to me with, broken glass everywhere. So I immediately pick her up, check her. She's fine. My German Shepherd in the back is okay. A little agitated, obviously. She's a little upset someone messed up her car. So she gets out and of course immediately wants to confront the guy that messed it up, and I'm like, "No, don't do that. Like, come back, sweetie,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, no, this is already a bad situation. Let's not make it worse." But luckily everyone was okay for the most part, except for the moose, obviously. And yeah, the guy that was coming the other way stopped, and he was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I just hit a moose," was the only thing I could basically say. And yeah, sat in his car for a bit, made a couple phone calls, and yeah, it was kind of in a pitiful moment where like I just about died. So after that, I remember just kind of having a train of thoughts, like, that was really close and really unexpected. Anything could happen at any point. So maybe it's time to start doing these things that you wanted to do. And starting a YouTube channel for stop motion was one of them. So after that, I started doing, stop motion cartoons, essentially one-handed with my left hand. And ever since then, I've been doing it. So it's been a
Good
lot of
man.
fun, quite an adventure, but
Yeah. So you said you started stop motion. Why stop motion specifically? And
I've always had a big passion for it personally. Like, probably my biggest influence growing up would have been Wallace and Gromit in particular. I
Oh,
remember being young and just watching, like, because I played with clay too, obviously, right? And just seeing what this person was able to do and create an entire world on his own with just his own sculptures. I just found fascinating, and it was like, is something I want to do. So.
yeah,
Wallace and
well,
Gromit for sure, and
Wallace and Gromit.
Pengu is probably another one. I remember watching that one quite a bit as
What was
well.
the other one with the chicken? I forgot what it's called right now.
He's a
Is it
little
Chicken Run?
claymation penguin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But there's Chicken Run as well, is there not?
Yes, that one's
Chicken Run
called
was
Chicken
claymation?
Run. Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
That
because that's
that
pretty.
I could go into a bit of a spiel about that one because I'm a bit of a movie freak too. There's a new one coming out for that, but I'm guessing, yeah, because there was a big rights problem between Aardman Animation and Universal Studios, which is why it took so long to make a sequel for that. Everybody knows Chicken Run, I've noticed, but yeah,
Yes, I
I'm
have a copy of it myself, so I'm
yeah.
not ashamed to say that.
Yeah, no, it's a
It is a lot of fun.
great movie. I love that one too. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those deals that kind of went sour, and which is why we've unfortunately never really gotten a sequel till recently. So I'm kind of excited to see that too, personally, because yeah, I'm guessing Aardman probably
Mhm.
purchased the rights to it because they're gonna make money off that. I guarantee it.
Yes. And so presently, which project are you working on? I know there was something that you with dinosaurs for sure.
A lot of
It's
dinosaur
Godzilla.
stuff. Yeah.
Because you
Th-
started with the cars. I remember way
yeah.
back it was the cars, and but now it's dinosaurs. And how's that going?
Well, pretty good. Well, I know it's kind of a big switch from where things started, obviously, because it was mainly like doing a lot of drifting competitions, little races with clay cars and burnouts and stuff like that, and using cotton from my old dog's stuffy toys, actually. So it works quite well as smoke, actually. So a little creative tip there for any stop motion artists that might be listening.
Yeah,
Any rate, yeah, I was going over my analytics. I'd done a couple dinosaur things in the past, because I've always kind of been a bit of a dinosaur enthusiast. And going over between the dinosaur projects and the car projects, the dinosaur stuff was just reaching far more people, getting much more, clout. It was reaching a bigger audience. So
understood.
this year I was basically like, okay, this is where the numbers are going. So this is where I'm gonna start, basically focusing my content basis on. And it's really
Understood.
paid off ever since. So for any
Are you
YouTube,
enjoying it though? That's the
yes,
most
oh yeah,
important thing.
definitely.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
learning so
Because
much. Yeah.
I watched I just binge a lot of your videos, and it's such a meticulous process. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I was like flabbergasted. I wasn't I've never really delved into the world of stop motion. I just kind of admired it from afar. But watching your videos, you just bring everyone right front and center, and such an immersive experience. How do you go about documenting your process? Beside video, is there another process? I know you storyboard, but is there another process that you do?
Lot of homework, and watching other creators, I would say, is a good thing. Like, it almost is a bit of a flaw at this point because you can't really sit down to watch anything and just enjoy it anymore because you're like sitting there critiquing it and taking notes. How you can apply other methods to what you're doing is another big one that I like to use essentially for that, is just watching other creators and kind of figuring out what the tricks and trades are of the trade essentially. And
Yeah,
big one is like frame rates. Like, I'd say probably about 2 years ago when you first started watching things, that was around, I did a lot of different research on different big studios too, and that's another good thing because there's a lot of information out there for that kind of stuff, and it all depends on what you're doing too, as style. So frame rate will change on depending what you're doing too, but majority of the time I use 2 and 24, but at the beginning I was using 3 and 30, and with that one you could still kind of see a little bit of choppiness, but I find the 2 and 24 is a lot better, but it does take a painstaking a lot more time. That's the only downside because you are essentially working with 1 and 12. So you're dealing with single frames. So if you do make a mistake, it does show up a lot more and it's a little harder to correct at that point. But basically just take a lot of homework from variety of studios. There's a lot of how-to stuff out there, and myself obviously included has a decent amount of tutorials on how to do stop motion as well. So
yes,
just
it's
gather as much knowledge
comprehensive.
you can from any source. That's what the internet's there for, right?
Yes, but it is a very. I was surprised at how many videos you have amassed over such a short period of time is, and they're so organized. That's the other thing. I was like, oh my
Well,
goodness,
I'm glad
this
you think
guy's the
it's
real deal.
organized. I don't think it's that. Yeah,
Extremely.
I
Yes,
need to
because
clean
you
it
have
up
these
just a bit.
playlists. If they go into onto your YouTube channel again is
Moose motion.
Moose Motion.
Yep.
Yeah, go into to Moose Motion. You can see all these wonderful videos with the dinosaurs, and if you go back into history, you can see like all the cars and so many other things there. It's really fascinating. It's a wonderful world that you've created, and it's completely and totally understated as well.
Yeah,
But one of the
that's
things
been
that,
part of the downfall
yeah,
too. Yeah, stick to a certain niche. I find like that's
right,
why I've gotten a lot more momentum recently too. Is of sticking to that audience to a
right,
degree. Before it's kind of was trying to figure out where I belonged. I think, and obviously that's going to be part of the process too. But yeah,
yes. Well, well, as I was looking through the videos, I noticed that your hands are very tidy.
yeah,
Yes,
that's yeah.
you are a very good artist. I
That's
saw some
another big
renderings you
tip.
did. Yes, of
Keep your
some,
hands very
yeah,
clean because the clay will literally absorb anything inside your pores, which is
right.
unfortunately a bit of a challenge for me sometimes because I work trades for the most part. So usually when I get home, my hands are pretty dirty, but I'm always the guy that's wearing gloves for everything I touch. Unfortunately, I do get a little bugged for that sometimes, but I'm just like, nah, I'm an artist. My hands are more valuable.
Yes, and I can attest to that as well, right? So, yeah, but the drawings that caught my attention, how well you can render them of the vehicles, and even one of my favorite drawings that I saw was the Skinwalker.
Oh yeah, that one
Yeah,
got yeah.
yeah. What inspired that Skinwalker?
Oh, I just think they're cool, and
Yes, they are.
going, like a lot of my inspiration comes from folklore and stuff like that.
Right.
Obviously, I like monsters, so that one is honestly probably like the coolest piece of Canadian folklore that we have. So I was like, okay, I kind of have to do something with it because, for one, it's fairly popular on YouTube, obviously, but it's just something that I think is pretty cool and is a little underrated. So I just wanted to give it a little bit more notoriety to it and hopefully offer a little bit of inspiration for other people. I mean, the only issue about that doll was like
Oh,
when you're doing things that are more skeletal, you have when you're building the frame, certain parts are going to be visible. So you do have to take more time and attention to detail at that point because the skeleton's part of the piece, which is semi, relaxing for the monsters and dinosaurs in comparison. Because everything, you make a mistake on the skeleton, it's okay, it's going to be covered up with clay. But not in that case, it's going to be seen, right? So
right. Yeah, that I'm telling you, that's a whole world you've created. It'd be interesting to see the dinosaurs and the people from the previous videos and that come together like some kind of a mashup.
that'll be coming together actually pretty soon with the Godzillas in particular. I think I don't want to give too much away, but yeah,
Yeah, well,
I have some
absolutely not.
yeah, I have some not so friendly plans for my little Lego city. There might be
Well,
some
we'll have to have you
reconstruction coming
back
on.
on. I'll have to have you back on when that comes about.
Yeah, I
How's
would
that?
definitely enjoy to come back.
Yes,
That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah.
yeah, wonderful. Well, we're almost out of time. I'm going to let you go because I know you're a very busy man, and you have, like, as you mentioned, you get up very early for your job, and then you have the whole studio and you have the pets. And
Small
so,
petting zoo, yes. Yeah, my house is basically set up as a studio at this point. Like I'm actually using it my soundproof room for this recording as well. It's where I do all my sound recordings and like sound effects for my stop motion stuff as well. So it's like, okay, cool, opportunity to use this again.
absolutely.
Although
Well,
that's
it's an
probably my least
absolute.
favorite part about stop motion is honestly doing the sound recordings because that's the part where it really comes to life, but it's very meticulous and you're just kind of sitting in a dark room by yourself all day going, oh God, is this going to end soon?
But you
But
get satisfaction out of the results, right? The
yeah,
final
that's
result is
true.
what counts.
It's just the part where it's like it's hard to because you have to be very patient, right? You're just sitting there, and if so much as cough or make a sneeze, you have to start over. So it's like, don't move. So,
Yes.
if anything, I would say the sound work is probably my least favorite out of it all. Like, it's where it comes to life, obviously, so it's a very important step, but yeah.
One thing I was very, very curious about, and I had no opportunity to ask any other stop motion uh, specialist, and so that is how long does it take to film like
Ah,
60 seconds or a minute?
that's a good question. Okay, I've broken it down to a different ratio, not necessarily a minute, because a minute long film, it really depends on what you're doing, right? Because it's a very hard to give you a definitive answer. I would say, like, I've broken it down to an average about, say, if I'm working for an hour to an hour and a half or 45 minutes on a not so complicated scene, I get about 1 second of footage.
Oh,
So that's,
mm,
yeah, it adds up pretty quickly. So if you want, say, 2 seconds to 3 seconds, that's about 2 to 4 hours worth of work. And that's not including any of the sound work. That's just straight taking photos and moving things very, very slowly, meticulously. And not to mention there's the setup too, because that's one thing you also need to really nail down before getting things, like to do a couple test shots before getting into the animation. Because if you make a mistake during the process, and you're really far in, you're stuck with it. You either got to accept it or you got to start over. So setup is very important, and take your time. Like that's the best thing. Like if you want to, it takes me probably about a week or so to do an entire minute, maybe a little bit better, but it really depends on what you're doing. If it's more complicated, then it's going to take longer. Obviously, if you have multiple characters in the scene, then you can expect that ratio to almost double, right? Because then you have to work with not only the character itself, whatever is going on in the story, as well as, the camera, if that's in motion, if not too. And there's the whole aspect of making things talk as well. That's an entire other nightmare on its own. I don't
yeah.
even know the ratio for that. I've done that occasionally. It's like not impossible, but for that, you are basically write down your script ahead of time, and you have to break it down syllable by syllable and word for word, and you're going to be
That
sitting
makes
there
sense.
for hours. Like, I think to make my Wendigo talk, for example, like I did a little, like, because obviously it was a little more gruesome than what I normally do for a lot of my content. So I was like, hey, I should probably do just a little bit of a, hey, this might be a little more graphic for some of my more sensitive viewers. So I gave a warning for it, and I wanted to make him do it just to kind of have a unique spiel on the entire thing, so it's not nearly as boring, right? Instead of me just
Right.
going, hey, yeah, be careful, this is shocking content, blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
making him do it, that took me probably about, I'd say, 16 or so hours, and that was about 22 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very meticulous. It all depends on what you're doing, but a good average for 2 and 24 frames per second is about one hour for 1 second of footage to get something that's pretty decent quality.
Oh, I see. So they're somewhere thereabouts. Uh, the video that I really liked, something about I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's the Godzilla and he kind of either barfs or something with
Oh
the
yeah,
glue.
okay. Yeah.
So if anyone wants to see that, it's just so it's really fun. Anyway, I won't give it all away. You have to go and
Yeah,
see it.
it was
But
practical effects with the atomic blasting. Essentially, what that stuff is actually just long strips of clay hay. So all I had to do for that, it's being productively lazy. So you can basically find little shortcuts if you can. So I basically have a bunch of different extension pieces that'll come out of the mouth through frame by frame, right? And then once it gets to the point where it's hitting the ground, you only need that one piece of fire or atomic breath in this case. And you can basically just sit there and kind of rotate it in between the frames. And as long as you're moving everything else, as long as it's kind of jarring and moving around everywhere, that's what fire is normally supposed to look like, right? So you can kind of basically be productively lazy with your animations, as I like to call it at that point, because it
that,
still looks just as good.
and
But
how long did that take you? That particular video
that
to make?
animation took me about a little over 2 weeks, I think about 10 days. And I think that one's about a minute and 20 seconds, if I'm correct. It's been a
It
while since
goes
I've,
by super fast.
yeah, yeah, very fast. Unfortunately, with the YouTube algorithm too, I always need to make sure I have a certain amount of backlog in order to do those projects, as I know it's like, okay, this is going to take a long time. And in order to keep things active, I need to, X number of backup videos before I can dive into one of those projects, just because the algorithm's fairly unforgiving in that stature, which is why I do a lot of the how-to stuff. But in retrospect, I think that's just as good, because it's motivated a lot of younger kids, especially, to start their own stop motion animation cartoons. And honestly, that's
Awesome.
probably been the most rewarding experience for me personally, especially in 2020. Like when I was early days of starting this, I remember there was a kid from the Czech Republic who made a replica Spinosaurus of mine. And that
Oh,
just made my entire year. So yeah, shout out to that kid. That's I still think about that to this day, to be
hey,
honest. So yeah, yeah,
awesome. That is great. But yeah, this has been something else. I can talk to you forever about this because it's such a fascinating industry. And I wish you all the best, but we will definitely stay in touch.
awesome. Yes,
Absolutely.
I look
Such
forward
a
to doing this
pleasure
again. Yeah,
speaking with you again. So much fun. Always fun hearing your voice and talking about the dinosaurs. So thank you
yeah,
so much.
that's another topic we could entirely go for.
Oh yeah.
I'm fairly fluent in Greek and Latin at this point with the dinosaur content. So I remember
That's excellent.
remember our phone call before the podcast here. I remember throwing a couple, and you're like, "What? How did you say?"
Oh my goodness. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And where can folks find you, Evan, and Moose Motion
um,
Studios?
I have several different, like, obviously social media platforms. I'm surprised you found me from Facebook because that's probably one of the weaker platforms, unfortunately. So it would be nice to get a little extra push on that one in particular. Instagram as well. That's Moose Motion. Both are Moose Motion. The only difference is there's an underscore between the Moose and Motion on Instagram, and then just capitalize M's on Moose Motion on YouTube.
Awesome. See you at Moose Motion. Take
Awesome.
care.
Yeah.
All
Have a
right.
great day.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
You were listening to Journaling with PT and my conversation with guest artist extraordinaire Evan Falk of Moose Motion Studios. Give him a follow on YouTube, watch his videos, support the podcast, follow, give a 5-star rating, and stay tuned.